Every town has a dark side. A single scream ripped through the still January air in Levittown, Pennsylvania, so loud and so raw that neighbors would never forget it. Inside that house, something horrific had just been discovered, but even before anybody dialed 911, the rest of the world had already seen it. Hours earlier, a 14-minute video went live on YouTube. In it, a man sits before the camera speaking with absolute conviction, holding something no one should ever hold, saying things no one should ever say. It streamed for more than 5 hours, racking up thousands of views before the platform finally pulled it down. But by then, the damage was done, and the message, it was out. This wasn't just violence, and prosecutors would later call it domestic terrorism, a crime planned in chilling detail, committed by someone who once seemed like any other kid from the suburbs. And hey guys, it's Andrew, and welcome to another episode of Every Town Where Today. We're going inside a case so disturbing and so public that the deeper you dig, the harder it is to understand how it could have happened at all. This is a killing that went live, the Justin Moan case. Justin Moan wasn't always the extremist killer he became, and that's what makes his story so unnerving. Back at Neshaminy High School, he was doing well by every metric: honor roll, perfect attendance, boys soccer. He even snagged runner-up for class clown his senior year. And childhood friends remembered him as the kid they'd like to play hockey with in the neighborhood. Upbeat, funny, and easy to be around. But even then, something was shifting. The classmates noticed a transformation. The small, scrawny goofball grew more confident, but also as a side effect, and this is a direct quote, more dickish. A tiny detail in hindsight, but maybe the first sign that something wasn't quite right. The real change came at Penn State University. College was when Justin, in the words of his childhood friend Michael Prickett, went completely off the rails. He still held it together enough and walked away in May of 2014 with a bachelor's degree in agribusiness management, so academically he was fine. But personally, he was not the same person who walked in 4 years earlier. What happened during those years is still murky, but one thing is clear. Justin didn't just leave with that diploma. He left with crushing student loan debt, $165 a month at first, and an obsessive grievance that would later balloon into an all-consuming hatred for the federal government. And more troubling, he carried away a growing paranoia that the entire system was rigged against him personally. And he would spend the next decade trying to figure a way out of the matrix, which is ironic because he really only fell deeper into the rabbit hole of paranoia and delusion. So after graduation, things started to snowball. Back home in Bucks County, Justin couldn't find stable work. Most people would chalk that up to the usual post-grad struggle. Not Justin, though. He decided it wasn't bad luck or a tough job market. It was targeted discrimination because he was a quote-unquote overeducated white man. And that belief, it became the foundation for everything that came next. In 2015, Justin packed up and moved to Colorado Springs, chasing the idea of a better opportunity. His roommate there, Davis Redban, ended up with a front row seat to Justin's unraveling. Looking back, Redban told CNN something that's chilling once you know how the story ends, that even in 2016, Justin had very clear issues. He would launch into rambling conversations about how the government was out to get him, spinning vague, exaggerated stories that never quite added up. At the time, Redban figured he was just dealing with an eccentric roommate who had some personal problems. Dangerous? Not in his mind. But those rants turned out to be the first glimpses of something darker taking root. The living arrangement collapsed quickly. and Justin began having what Redband described as hysterical fits. During one incident, while Redband was away, Justin completely wrecked their apartment. He shattered mirrors, punched holes into walls, the works. When confronted, Justin claimed he had undiagnosed PTSD and had blacked out during the destruction. Redband reported the damage to property management and moved out in November of 2016, but by then, the pattern was obvious. Whenever Justin felt cornered or frustrated, he lashed out. Not at people yet, but at whatever was within reach. Fall is planting season. And did you know that many plants and trees actually do better when planted this time of year? But you have to know where to start, and that's why I love FastGrowingTrees.com. Doesn't matter if you live in the sunny south or if the air is getting chilly where you are, their plant experts can help you find the perfect fit for your space. And they got everything: fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, you name it. And the best part, you don't even have to leave home. You just order online and your plants are shipped straight to your door in a matter of days. Now, I'll be honest, before Fast Growing Trees, I used to think about landscaping and immediately see dollar signs. I once got a quote for a few trees in my yard and it was outrageous. That's when I found Fast Growing Trees, which not only saved me hundreds of dollars, but I also didn't have to spend a Saturday fighting traffic only to find the nursery didn't even have the tree I wanted. Instead, the tree I ordered arrived happy and healthy thanks to their Alive and Thrive guarantee, and it was grown right here in the US, so I know it's built to last in my yard. This fall, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code EVERYTOWN at checkout. That's 15% off at FastGrowingTrees.com using the code EVERYTOWN at checkout. Now's the perfect time to plant and use Everytown to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions apply. And check out the link below or in the show notes and support the show. Just a month earlier, in October of 2016, Justin had landed what looked like a fresh start. A $16 an hour customer service job with Progressive Insurance. He even completed their 13-week training program, surprisingly without issue. For a brief moment, it seemed like things might finally be turning around. And they weren't, not even close. Despite his education and completion of training, Justin kept getting passed over for internal promotions because he didn't meet the minimum requirements. Pretty standard workplace feedback, right? I mean, most people would take it on the chin, meet the requirements, and try again, but not Justin. Now, his paranoia shifted into overdrive, and he became convinced Progressive was targeting him specifically, discriminating against him. By May 2017, he was calling the Colorado Springs police to file a complaint, threatening to sue and vowing to use his publishing capability, which we'll explain what that means in a minute, to expose the company's so-called violations. And things hit their breaking point in August when Justin's frustration boiled over into outright physical violence. And he was fired after literally kicking open the office doors. Well, let's pause on that for a second because it paints a real picture. He kicked them down, at work, like some kind of maniac. Progressive cited the destruction of company property as the reason for termination, but in Justin's mind, this wasn't about his behavior. It was proof that the system was rigged against overeducated white men like himself. That day at Progressive became the cornerstone of Justin's personal victimhood saga. And for years after this, he trot out the firing as ironclad evidence of systematic discrimination, carefully leaving out the part where he went full WWE on their office doors. And that's the pattern you'll see again and again in his life. Take the very real consequences of his own actions and twist them into supposed persecution and some grand conspiracy. After Progressive, Justin's career became a sad carousel of short-lived jobs and bitter exits. He did a contract gig at Microsoft, later claiming he was a heroic whistleblower, exposing their use of overseas contractors. He worked briefly at Jersey Mike's Subs before that fell apart. He spent a single month in 2020 as a client service rep for a Bristol security company before, predictably, that went south too. Instead of taking this string of failures as a cue to self-reflect, change course, or maybe even get help, we'll just poured every ounce of that frustration and rage into building an online presence that charted, step by step, for the world to witness, his descent into full-blown extremism. He began self-publishing books with Amazon with increasingly disturbing themes. The Second Messiah, King of Earth, was a thinly veiled autobiography with Justin as a character who uncovers satanic cults within the Democratic Party operating out of Colorado. Then came 2020's America's Coming Bloody Revolution, and this one is particularly chilling in hindsight. In it, Justin openly advocated for a violent purge of anyone born before 1991, branding them as traitors, and urged Americans to seriously consider killing their own family members, teachers, co-workers, bosses, judges, and elected leaders. And for reference, his own father was born in 1955, so he was a target. And Justin was quite prolific, as he also put out 3 music albums on Spotify and Apple Music. His 2019 release, Justin Stalkers, featured tracks like Momunist the Communist, a rant about living with his parents and still being in debt. Despite his non-stop self-promotion, he managed to attract exactly 5 monthly Spotify listeners. Just 5. The irony was brutal. An endless online output paired with near total isolation. On social media, he ramped things up. He tried to recruit for Moan's Militia on Reddit firearms forums, posted a resolution of impeachment against FBI Director Christopher Wray, pushed conspiracy theories about government persecution. All the while, he cycled through grandiose personas, calling himself things like the Second Messiah, leader of Moan's Militia, self-declared President of the United States. And while Justin was spiraling into his own alternate reality detached from the world the rest of us live in, his family never stopped trying to pull him back. And they kept reaching out, and they kept trying to help. Justin's father, Michael, was everything Justin wasn't. Respected, accomplished, and grounded. It's probably why Justin hated him so much, at least part of the reason. Ideally, children should do better than their parents in life, and somewhere Justin knew this, and it aided him, because he wasn't close to what his dad had become.
Loved ones of Michael Moan and his friends told the judge what a remarkable man he was. Loving and talented. The judge heard how Justin's parents tried to get him mental health help, but also how he refused over and over.
See, Michael was a civil engineer with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. He held 5 patents for his innovative work and had over 20 years of dedicated public service under his belt. Colleagues described him as a gifted problem solver, an invaluable mentor whose design saved taxpayers millions on major environmental cleanup projects. Michael and his wife Denise had lived in their Levittown home for 38 years, offering the kind of stability most families can only dream about. Even as Justin's behavior grew more erratic and his beliefs more extreme, they never turned their backs on him. They gave him a roof over his head and $540 a month to help while he looked for work. When Justin's roommate situation in Colorado turned toxic, Michael didn't just offer advice. He got on a plane and flew out to help in person. That was the kind of father he was. But somehow that unconditional support didn't breed gratitude. It fueled resentment. As Justin's worldview tilted hard towards fringe right-wing conspiracy theories, he began describing his parents as on the left. His father's decades-long federal career, which most would see as honorable service, became in Justin's eyes proof that Michael was a traitor, complicit in government corruption. And from 2018 to 2023, Justin waged an obsessive, losing battle against the federal government, filing at least 6 major lawsuits. His primary target was the U.S. Department of Education. His central claim was, as bizarre as it was self-serving, that the government had committed fraud by letting him take out student loans without warning him about the supposed job market discrimination. Across these cases, he demanded over $10 million in damages, and the courts rejected every single one.
Justin's brother told the court that his brother blamed all of his losses and events that didn't go his way on others, and never took responsibility for his own shortcomings.
Federal judges grew blunter with each dismissal. Judge Mark Kearney described Justin's complaints as inaccurate allegations of a disappointed college graduate and entirely speculative and without factual basis. In plain terms, the judge said Justin was trying to hold the federal government responsible for his own inability to land the kind of job he wanted, despite having found employment multiple times since graduation. And the final blow came in 2023 when Justin's last lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, a legal dead end that barred him from ever refiling similar claims. With that ruling, his final peaceful channel for pursuing his grievances against the system was gone, and this happened just months before he turned to violence. By then, the warning signs were everywhere. In the summer of 2023, neighbors began calling police about Justin's increasingly erratic and unsettling behavior. One neighbor, Bart DeHaven, reported that Justin would sit on a culvert for long stretches, silently staring at his house. The behavior was so unnerving and so persistent that multiple calls were made to authorities from various people. A Philadelphia employer also reached out to police, alarmed by Justin's conduct at work and asking how to terminate him safely. Even the FBI had crossed paths with him before. In 2018, they received 4 separate tips about his extremist social media posts. Investigators found no evidence of an imminent threat at that time, but police did later visit the family home to warn him about his online content. Still, no charges were filed, and technically, he hadn't yet made explicit threats. The most heartbreaking warning came from inside his own home. And just 3 months before the murder, his parents, deeply worried by his behavior, pushed him to undergo a mental health evaluation. In October of 2023, clinicians at the Lenape Valley Foundation gave him a provisional diagnosis of unspecified depression, anxiety, and cannabis use disorder. They placed him on a wait list for outpatient treatment, a program that might have offered him a lifeline. He took himself off that list before it could even begin, though. January 30th, 2024 started in the Mohn household like it had countless times before. Around 2 p.m., Denise grabbed her bag for work, told her husband Michael, "See you later," and walked out the door. It was an ordinary exchange, until you realized those would be the last words she ever spoke to him. What Denise couldn't have known was that the day before, Justin had made his final preparations. On January 29th, he walked into a gun shop, purchased a 9mm handgun, and, knowing the law, surrendered his medical marijuana card to make the sale legal. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment decision. It was deliberate and planned. Minutes after Denise left, Justin confronted his father. In court, he would later call it a citizen's arrest, accusing Michael of treason and lying in a civil case. He claimed Michael, a man he described as a skilled martial artist, told him he'd kill him before letting that happen. Then, Justin reached for the weapon. What happened next was quick, violent, and final. When Justin pulled the trigger, the shot to Michael's head echoed through the first-floor bathroom. Then, as if killing him wasn't enough, Justin retrieved a machete and a kitchen knife. Methodically and almost ritualistically, he severed his father's head off. This, it appeared, wasn't rage. It was more theater, like in one of his books. Justin wrapped the head in plastic and placed it neatly in a cooking pot and began setting up recording equipment. The stage was ready.
On January 30th, 2024, he shot and killed his dad and then beheaded him. He posted his father's mutilated body on the internet and encouraged others to join his militia.
In the 14-minute-long YouTube video, Moan referred to himself as a militia leader, threatened federal officials, and called his father a traitor to the country for being a federal employee.
The 14-minute YouTube video that followed was unlike anything most viewers had ever seen. A grotesque spectacle where political delusion met calculated violence. On camera, holding his father's head like a trophy, Justin proclaimed himself the new President of the United States. He demanded violence against federal employees, naming targets one by one. FBI Director Christopher Wray, Attorney General Merrick Garland, Chief Justice John Roberts. At one point, he read aloud a federal judge's home address. The manifesto mixed extremist conspiracy theories into a dangerous cocktail, great replacement propaganda, and fantasies of a global communist coup and bile aimed at immigrants, the LGBTQ+ community, and Black Lives Matter activists. He declared himself commander of America's National Militia Network, urging followers to either execute federal employees or capture and torture them first, whatever they felt like. For 5 to 6 hours, this video remained online, unfiltered, unchallenged. Over 5,000 people saw it before YouTube took it down for violating rules against graphic violence and violent extremism. But by then it didn't matter. The damage was done. The images were burned in the minds of thousands, and the message was already spreading to corners of the internet where it would never be erased. After uploading the manifesto, Justin didn't stick around. He grabbed his father's 2009 Toyota Corolla and tore out of Levittown, driving more than 100 miles toward Fort Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania National Guard base. His plan was as delusional as it was dangerous. Convince the Guard to take up arms against the federal government. He was, after all, the President of the United States. When he arrived, he scaled a 20-foot fence, and the same 9mm handgun he'd just used to murder his father still in his possession, minus one round. At 9:25 p.m., just hours after the killing, Fort Indiantown Gap police and Pennsylvania state troopers took him into custody without incident. When asked what he was doing there, Justin was blunt. He'd come to mobilize the Guard and demanded a meeting with Governor Josh Shapiro to enlist him in his revolution against the United States government. Back in Levittown, Denise walked through her front door and straight into a scene that would haunt her forever. When she opened the bathroom door, she was met with a reality no one should ever face. Her husband, Michael, lay decapitated. His head was just steps away, wrapped in plastic and placed inside a cooking pot in the bedroom. Her screams tore through the neighborhood. James Carnley, a neighbor, came running. Denise, in full hysterics, bolted to his house. When Carnley called 911, her wailing is clearly heard in the background. In court, jurors heard that call, Carnley telling the dispatcher he has no head, as Denise's cries filled the room. It became the chilling audio backdrop to one of Pennsylvania's most disturbing domestic violence cases in recent memory.
The investigation is only just beginning into the murder of a Bucks County father. His own son is accused of beheading him, and adding to the horror, displaying the evidence on social media. The district attorney's office is expecting...
Investigators then began piecing together the scope of Justin's plans, and it was far bigger than anyone had imagined. They found USB drives loaded with instructions for making explosives, along with photographs of federal buildings. And this murder was like the opening scene of Justin's horror movie, and there was still a lot to watch. He had a manifesto, he had targets, and he was ready to go far beyond killing just his own father. In court, Justin faced 11 charges: first-degree murder, terrorism, abuse of a corpse, and a laundry list of weapons violations. For a time, the DA even kept the death penalty on the table. In the end, though, they opted for life in prison. One of the trial's central questions was chilling in its simplicity. Was Justin mentally ill, or did he know exactly what he was doing? His defense brought in psychologist Dr. John Markey, who initially diagnosed him with schizophrenia. But after more evaluation, Markey shifted to delusional disorder, saying Justin believed he was the rightful king of America, maybe even the world, a self-styled messiah. The prosecution hit back hard, and their experts, Dr. Kelly Chamberlain, painted a very different picture. No psychosis, no loss of reality. She described Justin as calm, articulate, and highly intelligent, someone with depression and a personality disorder, but fully in control of his actions.
He was aware of his actions. He was so hyper aware of what he wanted to do that we saw, even surrendering his medical marijuana card so he could legally secure a firearm.
The jail competency evaluation sealed it. Behind bars, Justin was polite, cooperative, and medication-free. No outbursts, no signs of delusion. To the state, that was the truth. He wasn't sick, he was calculating. The trial ran from July 8th to July 11th of 2025. On the stand, Justin admitted to killing his father, but called it Plan B after Michael resisted the citizen's arrest. He even brought a notebook to court, its pages scrawled with words like boom and slice, proof of how far in advance he had planned it. The closing arguments ended on July 10th. Judge Stephen Core told the court he'd need time to weigh the evidence. But by the next morning, July 11th, he was ready. Guilty on all counts. Justin was sentenced to 2 life terms without parole plus another 40 years stacked consecutively, and he will never walk free again. His defense attorney called it a victory for avoiding the death penalty. But for the Mont family, there was no victory. Just the wreckage left by a son who traded promise for violence, family for fanaticism.
That family's loss. It's unimaginable what the defendant did to his father and to his family. I know this verdict does provide some level of justice, but it will never heal their wounds.
And now, in a concrete cell, Justin will live out his remaining years, no longer the king or messiah he imagined, just another inmate. The world will remember him, not for what he might have been, but for the horror he chose to unleash. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of Everytown. I hope you all enjoyed it. Go check out more episodes and podcasts from us if you're in a weird true crime sort of mood. Links to everything we have to offer are down below. I appreciate you all very much for stopping by and keeping me company. Remember to come back next week for another episode of Everytown filled with scary, strange, and mysterious stories. Because you never know. Maybe your town will be next.